2020 at 6 p.m. is now in session. And we'll hold up for a minute. We got a whole lot of number of people coming in. Folks, if you want to speak tonight on any issue on the agenda, or just to call the public, you need to sign a form at the back and give it to one of our staff members, please. Okay, Brenda, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Present.
Commissioner Dowell?
Present.
Commissioner Maston?
Present.
Commissioner Norwood? Commissioner Sherman?
Here.
Vice Chairman Dowling?
I'm here.
And Chairman Williams.
Here. All right. Next item of business is the approval of minutes for our February 24, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have any corrections, additions, or deletions from our members? If not, all in favor of approving those minutes? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
It's working. It's on. It's just not.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait a second. I'd assume everybody's here to speak on one of the agenda items, not to call the public. All right, well, normally this next session is for call the public. That's for any citizen to come up and address the commission for items that are not on the agenda. We have not able to take any action on those statements. It appears that there's nobody wanting to talk to call the public, so we'll move on to new business. We have 3 items tonight. The first is CUP 08005, EXTDR 20003 for the proposed Mountain View apartment project on 7th Street, just north of Mingus. Are we up and running?
We're having some technical difficulties with getting the presentation on the screen, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the commission, and the ones on the phone. This is Conditional Use Permit 08-005 EXT and Design Review 20-006 for the Mountain View Villas. The applicant is requesting approval of an extension of a previously approved conditional use permit for a 60-unit apartment complex located on the east side of 7th Street and north of Mingus Avenue. The site is currently zoned R3, which is multiple family residential. The previous approval was granted by the Planning Commission in 2008. Let me back up a little bit. So here's the site location. Mingus Avenue, Journey Church is right here on the corner. The existing Mountain View Villas in this location. The 60 units we're talking about in this 2.65 acre parcel right there. A little view of showing some of the terrain, and the property is right in this vicinity here. So as I stated, this had received approval by the Planning Commission in 2008. At the time, there was no time limit granted on that. So we are bringing it back at this point because of such a length of time that has passed, just to start a new, the new project with the same approval as before. The reason it requires a conditional use permit is the section of the code that allows, the height limit of the code that allows 2.5 stories or 35 feet. In this case, because of the terrain of the property, there are 3 stories associated with that, but still remaining under the 35 feet. So the current design is for 60 units. As you see on the south side of the property, in this location, this would be the access coming onto the site. There's quite a large gully running, traversing right through the site here. That would be dealt with through underground culvert and drainage, and a drainage retention down in this area. It would consist of 3 residential buildings located here, here, and here, with a clubhouse facility as the 4th building on the property. The landscape plan is shown here. Currently, there is the Journey Church proposal down here to the south, existing development of Mountain View Villas to the north and west, and residential uses along here, manufactured home subdivision. This would be an elevation of the buildings as proposed, and as you can see on the back side, of some of the buildings. This is where the 3-story issue comes in, and you can see how it's terraced down from the front to the rear of the building. This is typical of all the architectural designs of each of the buildings. This is just showing one of them. They are all typical. And this is a rendition of the clubhouse. Some views of the property you can see from standing on the edge of this wash. Goes quite deep down through here. This is looking to the south from the northern end of the property, and looking to the east to the manufactured home subdivision that is adjacent. There's also an existing apartment complex on the northeast edge of the parcel. Some of the existing Mountain View villas, also Mountain View villas. So that is all I have to say. I'd be available for any questions you may have.
You answered the one I had about why it's conditional use permit because of 3 stories.
Okay.
That's good. What about code requirement for screening along the area, that east boundary line where it borders the manufactured home subdivision?
Okay. Currently, the multiple family landscape requirement does not require additional landscaping next to another residential use.
Okay.
If there was commercial next to residential, it would be a different situation. Planning Commission does have the ability to look at this on a case-by-case basis, and with that landscape plan, we'll get back to that. This would be the site adjacent to the manufactured subdivision. There is a 10-foot building setback. The landscaping that is proposed is mostly internal with some existing vegetation. And
would the about how far is about halfway up for the where the manufactured homes are located?
a little bit more than halfway, but so starting at this point right here on south, and then this is that larger apartment complex.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions of Jim? Any technical questions?
I'm not Ford.
Oh, you're not? How about Hart?
There we go.
I look like a Ford. I don't know what it is.
As long as it's not an Edsel. Okay. I was also concerned about with the screening also between the church and between the manufactured homes. It seems like the landscaping is a little light along there, and something a little bit more substantial might be in order. But it's not required by code.
It's not required by code. Commission does have the ability. Let me get one little section here and I'll read that to you. Additional landscaping may be required as a condition of approval for rezoning, conditional use permits, or design review as necessary to address screening, compatibility of uses, consistency with existing conditions, or aesthetic considerations. So there is the ability for you to have that discussion with the applicant and yourselves of what you
Okay.
may feel
All
is
right.
appropriate.
All right.
Anything else, sir?
No, that'll be it.
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Dowell?
Any issues from the fire marshal, fire chief? Nothing?
No. No, they've met all the turnaround requirements and access to the site.
Will there be a fence on that east side of the property put in, or is it just going to be open?
Would just be open.
Okay.
There's some existing fencing.
But the existing
that's owned
fencing
by
is
the
from
adjacent properties.
the adjacent
Right.
property, right?
Right.
I don't have any other questions, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The drainage that's coming off I think I'm a little turned around. The south parking lot, what is that hitting again? Like so this
It goes
is,
this way.
oh, it's, okay. I'm going the wrong way. Ignore me.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of Jim?
It looks like we might have lost him.
Are we there?
I think, where's his number? I think we lost him. We'll see if we get him back. Want to continue?
Okay, is Commissioner Dowling available? Any questions of Jim?
I'm here and I have no questions at this point.
All right. Commissioner Sherman, do you have any questions of Jim? We lose her too?
No. Commissioner Sherman, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
Do you have any questions of Jim?
No, I do not at this time.
Okay. We'll see if Commissioner Norwood has.
We'll try to redial him if it works.
We can.
Love the world of electronics. It looks like we're heading that way more every day now.
Is this what you call winging it?
Oh yeah, really winging it, yes.
This is inviting. This is inviting.
Turn around, give it a shot.
You don't want to do that.
He's on television, actually, this being televised, so.
Consider it an audition.
Missing the camera? Good camera up there, isn't there?
In the meantime, we're going to collect all the notes from the folks that want to talk.
Okay.
Could you bring them up to me, please? Somebody collect those?
Does anybody have any, want to speak on any?
It sounds like we lost you.
A lot of them have signed, I don't know what happened to them.
It sounds like we lost you off the conference call for the meeting. We had dialed it and somebody had picked up.
Jim, a number of people signed, where did they
They
go?
all signed in on the
We dialed it on
the meeting, and then she
Okay, okay, need the request sheet, yes, please. Yes, would you circulate those while we're waiting?
have you on speakerphone on my phone. All right, if you wouldn't mind.
Folks, if you want to speak, you have to fill out this form, please, and give it back to Jim.
I said, go ahead and mute your phone unless you're ready to speak. All right, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone.
The forms are over here, if anybody needs.
All right, if you give those back to Jim or Gary, if you collect those, and we'll get them up here so we can have them, I can,
Mr. Chairman, we do have Commissioner Norwood on the phone now. He was not on the phone during the presentation, so he wasn't part of that.
Okay.
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of Jim? You unfortunately didn't hear the presentation apparently, but do you have any technical questions of Jim on this proposal? Is he there?
I'm really having trouble understanding what you're saying.
Oh.
It sounds like you're in a tunnel.
All right.
And you're getting cut in and out.
Do you have any questions of Jim, Law? Technical questions for Jim?
I just can't understand you. I'm very sorry.
Okay,
Understand
Mr. Director, would you?
Do
ask-
you,
my cell phone, it might be better.
do you have any technical questions for Jim on this presentation?
Which one?
The Mountain View Apartments.
No, I don't have any questions at all. In fact, it looks fine to me.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we just have one?
It's not for this, that's for the next item.
Yes, okay. All right. Very fine. The applicant here or their agents?
Yes, Krishan Ginnigy and Jim Moyer are here, so if you, the applicants, if you have any questions of them. would you like-
Yeah, would they come up? Maybe we can ask. Your name, please, for the record, again?
Krishan Ginige with SCC.
Good.
Commission, Chairman and Commission, thank you for your time. I think Jim did a pretty good job of explaining what the project is. I'll be happy to provide any additional clarifications. I think a couple of things I want to summarize. One is, Jim, would you mind getting that? Yeah. Very good. So there are a couple of things that have become an added benefit to the overall development. One is by this development, we have increased the circulation. This is one of the things that we will discuss with the fire department, because by connecting this with this development with the existing development, what we have done is like we have provided a secondary access for another 180 units.
Yes.
So I think that definitely is a benefit, and at the same, yeah, exactly. So at the same time, what we are trying to do is like to bring in another water service line, which is going to loop the system, which is going to be better for pressure from a domestic standpoint as well as firefighting standpoint. So those are two things that we discussed with the fire department and which I wanted to point out. At the same time, the drainage mitigation is another thing that we looked at. I think there was a little bit of discussion about the existing drainage. The existing development has some drainage challenges, but I think it's important to differentiate between the new or the proposed development as well as the existing development. Going through the process, I think we will be able to improve the drainage of the existing development, but definitely we are not in any way adversely impacting the drainage. At the same time, although it is not too clear to the north, what we are trying to do as far as the development is concerned is to stop all development almost 100 feet away from the property line, so that way the drainage exiting the site will exit to the natural condition. So those are a couple of things that we have discussed with the staff. I think would be important for you to know.
Good.
And there was discussion about the landscaping.
Yes.
We are open for ideas. You know, it's like when we have a 30 to 35 feet high building, there's going to be a certain number, you know, there's so much landscape can do. But having said that, we are not opposed to putting some more landscaping if it is necessary. The landscaping plan which we have actually follows the City of Cottonwood guidelines. Right in the bottom of this page is the City of Cottonwood guidelines. Having said that, we would be happy to work with the staff and add some landscaping. I definitely agree, you know, where there's going to be those mobile home sites, we are not opposed to adding some more landscape for that.
Great. It seems to me that that would improve actually the appearance of the project as much as a protection. It would just enhance it some more, particularly when they, as Commissioner Hart said, when they put those ball fields and things down behind you with the church when they build their project, it might enhance you. Is the ownership of this project the same as the existing one, or is it a new ownership? Or
it is. Let me try to answer this. Maybe we'll have the ownership also coming.
Sure, come on, that's fine. You can answer. Your name for the record, sir, in the microphone.
This is Jim Moyer. I'm the owner's rep, commissioner, and members of the commission. We will have similar ownership, but these are two separate projects.
Okay.
And there will be some investors that are in both, but they are both operated as two separate projects.
Right. Will it be under one management company or two, or just as a?
There will be one management company.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, real fine. Thank you. Commissioner Hart, questions of the?
Well, I still have the same question. I think that it would really help enhance your project if you had some additional landscaping along that southern edge and the right side there, not only for your people screening the mobile home part and the other part, and also any areas where you have the 3-story, some additional landscape in front of that to help break up that mass. You've done a pretty good job architecturally of giving 3D scope to the visual so that it breaks up the masses. But a little bit of landscaping would help break down that 3-foot tall view.
We'll be happy to do that. That makes sense to us.
All right.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
No, that'll be it. Thank you.
Questions of the applicant?
I'm going to disagree a little bit with extra landscaping, only because it's an apartment complex, and the more landscaping we put in there, we end up with some safety risk at some point. So, especially around the cars and that, I think it's appropriate where it's at right now. Just my thought.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to give my input on landscaping. I think that the landscaping, as long as it's away from the parking lot, like on the far side of building 4, that's really the area I think that could use it the most. And so that's where I would focus that, but I don't think you need it all the way up and down the edge. I think you're okay the way you are now, especially given the elevation change. And then I just wanted to ask about your drainage ditches. So you're obviously not going to have those full of water most of the time. What's your plan for like keeping those clean and healthy and not gross? Like, what's the drainage? Because your drainage kind of seems like it goes past them and under them. Like, how will they clear out?
Sure. Can I use the... So, existing, this whole area, I do apologize because if you can follow these contours right here, so this is that the gully or the wash, existing wash. So our intent on this is to capture, so this wash was a historic wash. Now the only contribution is from these 3 pipes, which are from the existing development.
Yeah, I guess my concern is it kind of seems like your sidewalks are converging where there might naturally be water.
Not necessarily. So what we are proposing to do is like, we are going to eliminate this entire wash area, and that is going to be substituted by a pipe system.
Okay, so there's not going to be an elevation change in the walkable area, is at least not enough that it would cause a
Exactly.
flooding.
So when everything is said and done, these walkways are going to be very user friendly.
Okay. I'm on it. I just wanted to check.
Sounds good.
Okay. Commissioner Sherman, do you have any questions? Yes, do you have any questions of the applicant?
I don't at this time. I think it's a well-designed plan, and I think I think it'll be an asset to that area and much needed.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am. I reviewed the plan. I think it's extremely important that the town takes on this project. We are way behind in our housing, and I think it will be an asset to the community. And I wish you good luck with this project.
Okay, good. Vice Chairman Dowling, questions of the applicant?
Yes, I'm here. I would concur with Mr. Norwood and generally most of you there. I think that we do need this housing stock. It looks like it was pretty well planned out prior, so that we can only improve from this point. I do believe that the landscaping should probably be adequate, given the grade changes and dealing with a 3-story building, trying to break up the massing of a 3-story building with landscaping can be tricky, and it'll take some time for the trees to come in. So it'll probably look sparse no matter what we do for some time. But at this point, I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. I don't either. I'm fine. I don't have any questions. I don't have any slips from the public.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So I'm going to close the floor to the public, and we'll ask each commissioner to express their comments and views on this particular project as presented.
I like the project as a whole. I really like your solution to the drainage problem, taking that through underground and taking it to the other side and then spilling it back out into the natural wash and then holding things back. I think that was a really good idea. I'd still go for a little bit more landscaping on the properties. I understand my commissioner to the right here's concern. I think it's worthwhile to invest in the landscaping and the 3-story. Initially, it's going to take a while, but I think in the long run, it'll be an excellent addition to your project. Otherwise, I think it's really outstanding. I think you did a nice job.
Commissioner Dell.
Great project, we need it, and it's going to do something with that no man's land that sits between the existing project and the current one. That no man's land needs to be addressed because it's a jungle. I've been in the middle of it.
Yes. Commissioner Madison.
Besides my concerns about the drainage, I'm so glad you guys had answers for that ready to go. I think this is a really great project. I think it looks nice. I think your architecture design looks nice. So I'm excited about it.
Okay. Commissioner Sherman, any additional comments? Commissioner Sherman, are you there?
Commissioner Sherman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Any additional comments?
No, I don't. At this time, I think it looks like a great project.
Okay.
No additional questions.
Commissioner Norwood, any additional comments, sir? Okay, thank you. Vice Chairman Dowling, any comments, please, sir?
Nope, I'm all good with it.
Okay. I'll second. I think this is going to be an excellent infill project in an area that worse area. It's going to be a definite improvement. We certainly do need the housing, particularly this type of housing, affordable housing for our working people. This is a start and a good start in the right direction. And as far as the landscaping, I would just encourage you, I don't think we'll make it a stipulation, but look particularly around that 3-story building, maybe adding a little bit. It'll be sparse for a while, but in the long run, it should be good. I'm going to, since we're having trouble with the phones a little bit, I'm going to ask Commissioner Dow, in place of our Vice Chairman, to give us a motion, please, sir.
Yes, Chairman. I would move to approve Conditional Use Permit 20-003, extension in DR 20-006 to allow Cottonwood Mountain View Villa Incorporated to develop the 60-unit apartment subject to the following stipulations. Number 1, that the project conforms to Code Review Board comments dated December 3rd, 2019. Number 2, that the project complies with all planning, building, utilities, engineering, and fire department requirements. Number 3, identify a minimum of 2 bicycle parking spaces in proximity to each building for a total of 6 spaces as required by code on the plans submitted for the building permits. Number 4, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 24 months of the Planning Commission action. And number 5, building permits shall be applied for within 3 years from the date of approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, or the conditional use permit shall be subject to revocation procedures.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, sorry, there's an error on the motion on the CUP. It should not be 20-003 EXT. It should be 08005 EXT.
Oh, okay. That's the new number, right? So.
Yeah, the 20-003 is a typo in there.
So that should be a 08.
Right.
So I would amend the motion then to be conditional use permit 08-005 EXT.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion, please?
A second? Oh,
Go ahead.
enthusiastic.
Commissioner Mattson, second. She seconds the motion. Brenda, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dow?
Aye.
Commissioner Maston?
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood?
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Dowling?
Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Good luck. We'll look forward to seeing that coming out of the ground. All right, our next item of business is CUP 20002, Detached Garage, a request for a detached garage for an RV parking at 1385 East Partridge Circle or Court in Cottonwood. James?
Thank you, Chairman Williams. This application, as you stated, is a conditional use permit for a detached RV garage located in the Quail Canyon subdivision. Current zoning code requirements for detached accessory buildings are 16 feet in height for a detached structure. This is the Quail Canyon subdivision, and the site we're talking about is at the corner of Quail Canyon Road and East Partridge Court. I think I called it the Quail Canyon subdivision. It's Quail Springs. The detached garage exceeds the height limit as stated in the code, there is a provision that they can request a conditional use permit if it exceeds 16 feet in height. Subject parcel is about a 1.67 acre parcel. This is the existing residence on the site. You can see slightly in here, there are little posts. This is the general vicinity where the detached garage would be located. The house is over here to the left. An aerial site plan showing the existing residence and driveway. The new driveway coming in to the detached RV garage on the west side of the property. Behind here, and you'll see in a minute, there's a little grading cutting into the slope, and there's between a 4-foot to 7-foot retaining wall in that area on the northwest corner of the garage. These are the architectural renderings of the structure. The garage over here on the right, there's a covered porch that would be seen from the existing residence. This would be the street view. Okay, this shows sort of the same thing, the existing residence and the RV garage. This lower section down here is the street elevation as it goes up the hill to other properties farther to the west. So this portion right here is where why we're here tonight, is this detached garage right here. Part of the reasons for the height, exceeding the height limitation, the code, as I said, does limit it to 16 feet, which we believe when the code was written was relevant to the times. Now a 16-foot height, when you have 13-foot-6 high RVs, there's a little bit of a issue there that staff is looking at, so that's why we deal with this on a case-by-case basis with you. The next, so I blew up that previous street view that shows where the street view would be coming, and the street profile, and then the garage on the other side. The applicant has proposed additional landscaping surrounding, around the garage to help with the visibility and aesthetics that the applicant has wanted himself. In the R1 zone, or in this case it's a PAD development, in our zoning code there are not additional landscape requirements for a single-family residence. So this is exceeding what the current code requires. So this is the existing residence right here. The detached garage would be on this side, so the visibility would be seen the back of the RV garage in this location. This is standing in front of where the drive would be to the RV garage, looking to the north. If you recall, this is a similar type structure that was approved by the commission about 7 months ago, also with a conditional use permit.
Jim?
Yes.
If I may interrupt, I should have asked you before this meeting, approximately how, I don't remember the distance between the house and that particular one.
The distance between the house and the RV garage is 51 feet.
Well, the one we approved before was,
Oh.
looked like about maybe 15, 20 feet max.
The minimum code requirement would be 10 feet in the
Yeah.
building and fire code.
Yeah, but it's pretty close to that
At
there.
least to 10.
All right, thank you.
This is The house is over to the right with the proposed garage. You can sort of see the rear corner of it there, but this is the vacant lot to the south. This is the property to the west that would be immediately adjacent to the rear of where the detached garage would be. And across Quail Canyon Road to the, looking back to the east. So with that, that would be all of my comments that I have for the commission. The applicant is here as well this evening, and I believe there may be some neighbors that would like to speak as well.
Okay. I only have one slip. Does anybody else want to speak? I've only got one. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hart.
I can,
yeah.
excuse me.
No, I'm
just sort
sorry.
of clarify one issue, and I think some of the comments that I've received, I did include all of the correspondence that I'd received from the neighbors. The HOA that is there and the existing CC&Rs are something, an agreement between the owners themselves. It is not something that the city enforces. We do not get involved in CC&Rs and HOA agreements. That's between the owners. The current HOA is still controlled by the developer of the property, and he has given his approval for the one that was constructed a few months back, as well as this one here. Since it is still in his control, he controls that decision that is made. So I just sort of wanted to clarify the CC&R HOA question, should they come up in the conversation later.
Yeah, very, very important. Commissioner Hart, any questions, questions of Jim on this?
No questions for Jim.
Commissioner Dow, any technical questions?
Where's that west property line in compare? How many feet is that west property line from that garage?
You said from the garage? Let's see. Oh, yeah. At this point, we've got 51 feet. So if you take this distance
So
here,
probably 60 foot?
yes. The applicant may have a more detailed.
Okay, I'll ask him.
Okay.
I don't have any
Commissioner
questions.
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of the of Jim right now on this garage project?
The only, you're addressing me, Mr. Harwood? Was that question directed to Mr. Harwood?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the only question I have is, it seems to be quite a bit larger than one would expect. I'm having trouble also hearing some of the things that are being said. The only thing I would say is, my question is, this is going to be used for RV?
Yes, that's correct.
What's the height of the RV?
I believe it's 13 feet 8 inches. 13 feet 8 inches
Line going to be, the top?
21.
to 21 feet to the peak of the roof.
Why does the roof have to be so high?
That's a question for the
Probably have to ask the
I think
applicant.
that would be a good question of the applicant. The garage door itself is 14 feet. So right there, when you have a garage door at 14 feet,
A couple feet
7
from
feet
it.
for the roof height at the pitch that it obtains, takes it up to 21 feet.
Is there any other plan that could allow for a roof height that isn't quite so high? Into the job?
Director.
Commissioner Norwood, that would be a question for the applicant as well.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Commissioner Sherman, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Any technical questions, Jim?
I basically had that same question. Why is a 16-foot garage not sufficient? And you need a 21-inch or 21-foot. So I guess that would be addressed to also to the applicant.
All right, thank you. Vice Chairman Dowling, any questions of Jim?
No, I don't believe there are any questions of Jim at this point.
All right. I don't have any further questions. I'll have mine are reserved for the applicant.
Okay, the applicant, Mike Duvernay, is here for any questions.
Your name for the record, sir.
Michael Duvernay and my wife Lisa Duvernay. I don't have slides, I have
No.
old-fashioned paper.
That's fine. We
Okay.
can refer to those, though, if we need it.
So basically, we've questioned the 21-foot elevation as the cause for the concerns. And after doing some additional research with the zoning committee today, we found that the requirements for elevation changed based on a sloped application, where you would average the roof height, and you would average the center line of the footprint of the existing grade where the property is going. And that would determine your 16-foot elevation change. And that information I discussed today with your zoning committee, and I've had my builder, my architect, put those dimensions on the drawing. So now I can show you the drawings that show the existing elevation of the property, which falls into the center of the building. You take the footprint of the center of the building, you establish that elevation, and then you take the roof line and you average the elevation of the roof line, which cuts from the bottom of the eave to the peak. In my case, is roughly over 5 feet of elevation change, almost 6 feet. So when you average that, that reduces the height of the measurable dimension, that being the average of the roof and the average of the existing plane, takes my offset dimension to 14 foot 4 inches, which in reality would put you under the 16-foot requirement for a building height, for a detached building.
Very good.
So that's the research that we've done, applied it to the drawings. We've been more than happy to review it with anybody here to make sure that it's accurate as described.
Okay.
But we do have drawings to support it from our architect, which is Joel, who's done a very nice set of architectural drawings here.
I have a question. I am visiting the property in the area. I'm concerned about the distance between the buildings. And you have that wash area that comes down through that.
Yes.
But it appears to me, I'm not an engineer, that could be channeled. That's not a really that wide of a channel, and you could do some channeling to reduce that distance between the two buildings. I'm concerned about the detachment being away from the...
Reason we proposed it in that fashion was there's the existing channeling that surrounds our home at this point.
Yes.
That directs the water to the drainage system. And with the extended roof that comes off the side closest to the home.
Right.
That really is very close to the edge of that drainage system. If you look at the corner, we're not very far off of that drain as we speak with the roof extension. And the reason we went with the roof extension there, the covered patio, be it called, is to break up the expanse of the wall. So aesthetically, it would look better. It would break up not having a large exposed wall that would be seen from the road and or other elevations. And then on the north side, obviously, we have the building recessed into the existing grade anywhere from 5 to 7 feet. So we're reducing the elevation of that building dramatically, so that it's less intrusive for anybody around it. And I can show Jim here the drawing that we have showing the layouts, and you could confirm what I'm saying, Jim, is this has been established as the average for the grade. So we took the, let's look at the main building here, the site plan. The architect basically took the, based on the parameters that we discussed, the average location from the center of the building in both directions with the existing established grades that are there, and determined that that floor level from at that point is where we would measure to the revised average roof line, if that's accurate.
Chairman Williams, Commission, I see a lot of numbers and measurements and height and all of that, but, and I can verify what he's saying here, to make a staff recommendation on something I feel uncomfortable.
No, that's fine.
You know, right now, this
no.
is the first
We don't expect that, no. Okay. Code-wise, we're still restricted to the lowest, the highest point from, on the site is from a code.
Well,
and
highest point from the existing grade.
Yeah.
The building that's built in a slope.
Yeah.
How do you establish that existing grade?
Well,
that's where we did the determination in the average.
Right, yeah. I still think that's an issue possibly, that from a code standpoint, 16 foot on the front of that. So I think we need to approve the height as part of this.
Okay.
And that's why, that's really, and that's the main reason you're here.
Right.
So, yeah, so we need to take, personally, I think we need to take action on that particular thing. Mr. Hart, questions of the applicant, please, sir.
Are you using, well, I'm going to use the term I know, gang nail trusses? You're using trusses for your roof?
Conventional trusses, yes.
And that looks like it's about a 3 and 12, is that correct?
A 3-inch?
3 and 12 roof, the slope?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Are you able to tell me what the distance is from that corner of the RV garage to the property line?
60-plus foot.
Okay.
To the buildable footprint of the property line. It's probably closer to 70, based on what the dimension of the 51 inches that's shown between the house and the corner of the building. If you transpose that there, it would be at least 60 to 70 feet.
I don't know, any other questions of the applicant?
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Norwood, questions of the applicant, please, sir.
Yeah, I have one more question. Is there going to be an upper storage area in this building? In other words, is there going to be a roof inside to where there'll be access to above the roof, the inner roof, or in other words, is there going to be above that storage or an area for people to walk in or to do additional things in, additional activities?
The garage floor to the ceiling, which is a flat ceiling, is 16 foot. My garage door elevation is 14 foot. In order to put a garage door opener on that door and have it elevated, we had to elevate the floor. We had to elevate the ceiling to 16-foot elevation to accommodate a garage door opener. Above the ceiling, there is no additional storage space. I've proposed an attic fan in there to remove heat, but that's a closed-off space. That is not any additional storage at all. There would be a side mezzanine on one side of the building, less than the opening of the door, just for additional storage within the primary height of the structure. And that's shown in the drawings.
Okay.
Yes.
And I was just curious as to whether or not they were planning to have an upper loft that would be utilized for maybe, copies or something else. But you're telling me the answer is no.
But along the west side, there is a mezzanine that's 6 feet wide that runs not the entire length of the building, but about 35 feet. That's just a storage area. And the windows are to accommodate light and to try to assist in the airflow with the building of this elevation. You try to keep the heat off the ceiling.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, sir?
Is that all you had, Mr. Norwood?
I did have one other question. I've noticed that there are a number of objections from your neighbors. Would you care to articulate how you've dealt with your neighbors on those objections?
What we attempted to do was to recess the building into the ground as much as possible to reduce the visible footprint of the building from multiple elevations. We also developed a landscaping plan that would encompass the entire building to, again, break up the aesthetics of the building and giving them a more pleasing eye appeal to the building itself. And the extension of the side roof was, again, also to break up the large wall so that it didn't look just like a 16-foot wall. It was actually had some distraction and some architectural qualities to it. So.
Anything else?
Sounds like it's really enough. I have no more questions.
Commissioner Sherman, questions, please.
Yes, I've had quite a few of my questions answered already here. It made a lot of sense, much more sense after the explanation about how the elevation changes, and there's like a 4 to 7 foot change for the rear of the garage. It makes a lot of sense to me. I am concerned about the people who are concerned about this big building being there and maybe blocking their view. I can appreciate that. And I also think this applicant has taken that into consideration as well by excavating that particular piece of land. So no other questions. I think everything's been answered for me. So that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, any questions of the applicant?
No questions. It's been very informative up to this point, so it's answered most of them that I would have had. Again, I would agree with Commissioner Sherman. I know that we approved something, a tall RV building, again, I think it was in one of the photos, adjacent to this some months back. And it seemed a little bit like there's a bit of a precedent that got set there. And I do know that, I think there was a brief explanation from Mr. Padgett that there is an HOA, but it's still, it's not necessarily representative of all the owners, as there is one majority owner still. And it's unfortunate, I think, that there's not more control over their local situation, and it sort of falls back to the city to be the bad guys, I guess, in this aspect. I do really appreciate the people that are concerned about it and have concern. That was really, I wasn't sure exactly how I would feel about that, because it's a delicate balance between private property rights and community acceptance and getting along with everyone. I do believe the applicant appears to have done a fair bit of work to try, lower the building into the grade, address some of the architectural concerns by some of the massing issues and adding some of the distractions or breakups to the building and the landscaping. I do, so I think all the questions are answered there. I do appreciate the concerns of the neighbors and the adjacent folks that were not happy with it. And I don't know system in place in order to deal with that. But we only have to deal with what we have, so I can't really dispute that too much. And we did approve one in here that was maybe not as high, but we did, approve an RV offsite structure, an adjacent structure. So I think it's going to be really hard to try and put that genie back in the bottle and tell this private property owner they can't build something when they have gone through the process to try and do it and to address the concerns that the code had and come in from the CUP. Along that line, though, I do think it will be interesting with the CUP, and I look back at the old project, we can revoke a CUP at any time. And it would be really interesting and unfortunate for somebody to have that come into play after they put a big building in there. So I think we need to address that in future concerns, but at this point, there's nothing else I can really add.
Okay. I don't really have any questions. You've answered the main question I had. We'll leave the comments to later, okay? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming and it's good to see a number of people, folks, the neighbors there, the attendance today. Yes.
Can I speak to Jim?
Yes, you, sir.
Jim, can I ask you a question? So, no, you're good. So let's say the RV garage isn't approved. He doesn't need a conditional use permit to put an ugly metal RV garage that does not exceed 16 foot in that space, correct? So we'll just say,
City codes,
right, so city code,
technically it could.
we don't approve the building, but then he doesn't have to come to us for a 16-foot metal RV garage that does not exceed 16 foot.
That's correct. We
Thank
would
you.
require it to be painted, but it could be metal, yes.
Thank you.
Can I comment?
You need to come back up, oh, sir. I'm sorry. We're recording this, so we need to have, and we're televising, so we need you at the micro. Appreciate you.
The additional opportunity that I understand is that if I were to attach this building, the RV building, to my house, it could be up to 35 feet tall and still be within your parameter codes. I didn't want to do that. I wouldn't want a 35-foot tall building in my neighborhood, even if it is attached to my house, and I wouldn't want to attach a 35-foot building to the side of my house. I think it would look ridiculous. But that is an option that's full within my legal parameters as I understand them.
Yes.
So I just wanted to comment to that effect.
That's a good comment, sir. Commissioner,
Jim, do you concur with that? Does that meet code?
If it, that would meet code, yes. As far as a single-family residence, the height is 35 feet or 2.5 stories.
Thank you.
very good. I have 2 slips. If anybody else wants to address the commission, I'll need you to fill out a slip and give it to us. I'm going to limit this discussion. If you'll come up, make your comments for maximum 3 minutes. And if the second speaker has additional comments, that would be fine. We just don't want to repeat what was said by the first person. So Gail Weiss? Yes, ma'am.
Gail Weiss.
Yes. If you'll give us your name to the...
Gail Wise.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Our objection, speaking for some of the people that are at the back of the room, is the height. The aggregate of the building is also over 2,000 square feet. It comes in at around 2276, if I remember correctly, with the patio on there. So oversized, over height. Our fear, the one that the developer said even this weekend he regretted, because it does look so ugly, that caught all of us off guard. This is going to, with the front of it being 21 feet, the house, the peak of the house, it's the same model as ours, is 21 feet, but it starts 3 feet up from the house, the front of that, or the part that's closest to the house. The footprint of that is going to look massive. The one up the hill set a precedence, and that was our fear. There were the last 5 of us owners that weren't here, didn't see the sign, didn't know it was going up until we came up here one day and go, oh, look, there's a big barn up there. We're imploring you to enforce the city code. What we signed off on when we went to build from the owner, the CC&Rs, that the code, there were no specifics on architectural control, but it said the CC&Rs are to enhance what the city has already. So it didn't say to throw out what the city has or anything like that, but we feel like he's rubber stamped it, like he rubber stamped the first one. This one, until we had a community meeting on Saturday, he didn't even realize it was a corrugated roof, which aren't even allowed in the area we're in. So we're asking that you not approve it the way it is. We don't have objections to garages. It's when the garages start looking bigger than the houses where we have a problem.
Okay.
So.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right. The next, Al. And your last name, sir, I won't even try to.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Al Gradigan. I'm the developer. I'm the president of the HOA. And unfortunately, I'm also in charge of the architectural committee. Give you a little insight. The very smallest lot in this project is 1.6 acres. One of your biggest communities in the city of Cottonwood is Mesquite Hills, which has got 20 to 30 RV garages. We could put 8 of those homes on this man's lot. So keep that in mind. Also, the property is rolling countryside. Mike's property is the very lowest level of the property. The difference in his property, the highest, is almost 200 feet. But I don't think his 20-foot garage is really going to be a big effect for some people. My philosophy has been, I believe a man has a right to enjoy his own property. And my criteria for architecture is that it is built as a quality building, and it is landscaped properly so it is not offensive, and it is therefore we require that an additional building match the primary facility or his home. Same stucco, same roof, etc. And I think Commissioner Gall was concerned about the neighboring property. I own that property and I have no complaints. And as the developer and as the chairman of the president of the homeowners association, as the architects committee, I have no objection to this. And I think Mike has done an outstanding job of designing this. And he's probably going to put more money in it than he did his primary residence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. There was a comment, Jim, on the roof. These drawings are pretty hard to read with this, the small print. My eyes are. Yes, sir. Come on back up, or Jim, either one.
I was just going to read what on his plans is concrete tiled roof over grace ice.
Isowater,
Okay,
isowater sheet.
okay, so it does say concrete tile roof.
Okay, it's not a corrugated metal roof,
No, the only thing that I proposed as a corrugated roof would be the lean-to.
a lean-to.
It's coming off the side. And one of the other things that I correction, the building itself is 1,728 square feet,
Okay,
which is well under your 2,000 square foot requirement for an outstanding building. Now, the covered lean-to, I don't know if that's inclusive of that covered square feet or not. So I am well under the parameters of the 2,000 foot requirement there. And if I have to put a cement tile on that lean-to roof, I will.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if that's what one of the big concerns are, I certainly will do that. Or if I made it freestanding, then I don't think there would be an issue as well.
Yeah.
As long as it's not attached to the building itself, so.
Yeah.
We were just trying to do something that's aesthetic-wise, to break up the look and enhance. It's a patina, so it's not a high glare corrugated metal, it's a patina finish on it, so it's not obtrusive to sunlight and stuff, so.
okay.
All right?
Any questions from the commissioners with regard to the roof?
No, sir.
Questions?
Okay, fine, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right, I have no other slips, so I'm going to close this to the public for comment, and I think I'm going to start off.
Okay.
I guess I have three things as far as, number one, I don't know that there'll be a proliferation in the subdivision of these. Not everybody has an RV they need to park in. But I have three things personally that I think really are important to mitigate these higher buildings. And one of those is construction materials and design. I think the applicants met that. So it's compatible with the residents, so it's an extension of the residents. I agree that looking at that, this is the lowest lot in the subdivision, or one of the lowest by far. That building, from my viewpoint, is not going to block anybody's view. The third criteria I have is the one that, and I understand you have some physical constraints here, but notwithstanding that, personally, I'd like to, if we're going to do these, I think they should be as close as possible to the existing building, and 50 feet is a long ways away. Because to me, that's going to stand out as a separate building altogether. The one on the hill, I think, is probably 15, 20 feet max. From the house, it blends in pretty much with the house. It's taller, but it's color-wise, it's so as it's presented at 51 feet, that's a no for me, okay? And physically constrained or not, I think, you know, if you can't put it any closer, then that's a problem. I just don't want to see these, even though those are big lots, I don't want them out in the back 40 kind of thing, and that 50 feet is quite an extension away from the house, in my opinion. Commissioner Hart, your comments, sir.
When I look at this, I see somebody who's really gone to a lot of trouble to mitigate the height. I particularly like the idea of cutting into the slope. By the time you get to the back of the building, you've cut the height of the building almost in half.
Yes.
Adding the landscaping was also another good touch. And now that it's not corrugated metal roof, I think the idea of the concrete tile on both the building roof and the shed roof would be an excellent idea. The only other problem that I have is when I'm looking at the front elevation. There's no relief. It's just one big block. I think you need something on that facade to break it up, to make it a little bit more inviting. But it's in terms of, you know, I see somebody who's gone to a lot of trouble to be a good neighbor. And try and, you know, setting into the slope, adding the landscaping, adding the architectural features on the side of the building to break it up. Those are all good things to do. But the one thing that I would like to see is a little extra effort put in on the garage face. You just need something there to break up that big mass facing out onto the street and the common.
Okay. Mr. Dowell.
I'll agree with the breaking up the front of just with a little bit of relief. So it's not, you know, whether you do it stone a quarter of the way up or something, so it's not.
Oh, a feature.
Some kind of feature to break that up so it's not obviously so opposing. I think my biggest, well, I have a couple things here. First of all, it's on a very large lot. It's on a 1.65 lot, which is a very large lot. It's 60 foot away from even the nearest property off to the west. With the grade, again, it being at the lowest, even before the the property developer said that was the lowest point, through the plans, I was like, this is a pretty low site. As he said, he could attach it to the house and we could make we could have a 35-foot monstrosity without anything further, or we could put a metal RV garage on there with no approval at all, as long as it didn't exceed 16 foot. So I guess you end up in that, where do we want to be at? Do we want a 35-foot attachment to the main house? Or do we want a metal one in this community? And I think that's something you have to levy is, where are we at with that? Do we approve a very nicely designed plan here, or do we go with making that house twice as big as it could be without any conditional use permit? Or do we end up with that metal thing? So that's where I'm at.
Rich Smith.
I tend to echo some of my fellow commissioners' comments about the effort that's very, very obvious. Like when I look at these plans, especially the landscaping plan, there are so many good intentions here. I do understand the concern with the separation of the buildings, but actually I think that the landscaping mitigates that significantly. I think that the abundance of trees and the grading makes it so that when people are looking at this from any direction but the front, which is, as my commissioners have said, if you just did something with a facade, it would solve a lot of problems. It's not going to be that imposing. And I feel that what some of your neighbors are reacting to is the existing development of an RV garage. But when we saw photos of that, there's no significant landscaping or grading around that at all. So that experience, that negative experience, won't be repeated here, assuming you follow your plans. And I assume that you will.
Mr. Mattson, or Norwood, I'm sorry. Your comment, sir.
Commissioner Norwood, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question.
Comments on this project?
Could you say that again, please?
Do you have comments on this project?
I'm sorry. I've already had my questions answered. The only comment I can make is that I'm in complete empathy with the neighbors. And I think this project is way larger than what cosmetically would fit the neighborhood.
Commissioner Sherman, your comments, please.
Yes, I appreciate all the work that went into this particular project, the landscaping, the excavating to accommodate the height of the building somewhat. I feel like it's really far from the house. I feel like it's a huge building. I appreciate all the people concerned that live around there, and I just really think that by doing this, there's a possibility that more could be built with conditional use permits, and it'll get to be just way too much for this area. When I think most people come here for the views, and I don't think they want to look at a big building. So those are my comments at this time.
Okay. Vice Chairman, comments, please, sir.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I think everybody kind of said it all. I tried to cover it most of the first time through. I don't really know what else there is to say other than that I feel for the folks that don't like it, but I also appreciate the private property rights of the gentleman who owned it. There's a delicate balance, and we seem to have been kind of placed in the middle of it. I think that as long as they are going through the process and providing the plans and doing the planning necessary to meet the city of Cottonwood's requirements, it's very difficult to try and put the onus on the owner of the property to satisfy adjacent folks. It's a difficult thing to try and ask somebody to do something that may not be possible to do. Along that line, again, it puts us into an unfortunate spot of kind of ending up being the architectural review committee for the subdivision in a fashion. Obviously, the developer was there, and he owns the adjacent parcels, and he was okay with it. Sorry, folks, but as long as they're following the rules that everybody else has to follow, it's going to be a tough one. And I do think that there was effort put into trying to mitigate some of the issues, and I can appreciate that and the opposition to it. That's really all I can say at the moment.
Okay. I second the comments with regard to the owner has taken a great deal of effort to mitigate this, that height requirement, and the design of the project. If we'd like to see some maybe relief on that front part. Mr. Vane, can you come back up to the podium just for a minute, please? Is there any possible way that that thing can be moved closer to the house at all? Maybe not 30 feet, but...
Well, about the only thing I could do moving it closer to the house would, I have two primary driveways.
Yes.
And in order to try to maintain the lowest floor level of the garage, I moved the driveway close to my existing drive, as you can see.
Right.
That driveway is very close to the existing drive.
Right.
If I were to bring the building closer to that by moving it directly across that line, I would interrupt all my drainage, which could be modified. It could be, yes. But that's existing there, and it drains very nicely right now. And the fact that we've fallen within the parameters of the buildable footprint of the property, I thought that balancing out and turning it on an angle to the road, like the viewing angle from the road, is not directly square to the front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
That would reduce some of the visual effect of that as well.
Yes.
And another thing, I have no problem matching the brick front. I have a partial brick front on the house. I would match that on the building as well, to give me the addition, to give it a little break up on the front, so that it would look even more like the home. And you can see when you go to the drawings there that it's hard to see in that light, but I could extend, there's a partial brick veneer on the front of the home that goes up probably 5 foot. Mm-hmm. And I could increase that height based on the elevation of that wall, additional, and I think it would make the lights look better, because those lights are gonna look like a postage stamp on the front of that building, right?
Right, yes, sir.
And So I don't have a problem with doing that, increasing and putting our brick veneer on the front side facing the road to break up the look of that building a little bit more. I would really not like to have to move the building closer if possible, just because of the existing drainage system that's there. And the rest of the system is set up to drain into that system from the upper elevation.
Right.
And we intend to put a culvert under the primary driveway so we don't interrupt that drainage flow at all as well. And the rest of it would come backside of the barn, would run to the lower lot line. Everything above that corner would drain to the existing drain that crosses the road in my driveways. So,
Very fine.
aesthetically, I don't have a problem increasing the brick, putting the brick on there. And we looked at turning the building even more, and that was even more offensive.
Yeah.
My thought, the reason it's on an angle is that it is not square to the road.
Yes.
So you're not going to see it square to the road when you pull into that subdivision. And we have a good barrier of landscaping. I don't know if you've got
Yes.
the landscaping drawing on we've added a ton of landscaping there. We've got 2 very large trees at the back of the RV barn. We've got landscaping running down the entire northern side. We've got a large silver maple going to the left of the garage door, and then another one behind it, and then another one on the back lot. So we're trying to isolate the entire property from everybody else's views. You know, and ours as well. You know, I don't want to look at somebody else's house necessarily either. You know, so we're spending a lot of money in landscaping, but I think it will serve its purpose, and as it matures, it will only get better. You know,
Sure.
so.
Very fine, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think that you've done a fantastic job of mitigating it. This is the lower property. I'm still concerned about the distance between the buildings, but I understand, I think with landscaping and so forth, maybe we can mitigate that difference. The angle is a good point. You're not just popping right out in the street. Yeah, so, and I guess if this were on a higher side up, I would really have some concerns, even more than that. With that, Commissioner Dell, I would entertain a motion from you, sir, if we move forward.
Yes, sir. I would move to approve CUP 20-002 to allow Michael J. Duvernay to exceed the allowable height requirements subject to the following stipulations. Number 1, that the project conforms to the fire department comments dated 2/21/20 and engineering department comments dated 2/19/20 as attached. Number 2, that the project is developed in conformance with the development plans as approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission at the March 16, 2020 meeting. Number 3, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 4, the City of Cottonwood reserves the right to revoke the conditional use permit if the use creates an irremediable public safety problem as determined by the city. And I've added number 5, to match the brick veneer to the existing residence.
On the front of the building?
On the front of the building.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Commissioner Hart seconds the motion. Brenda, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Maston?
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood? No. Commissioner Sherman? Commissioner Sherman?
No.
Okay. Vice Chairman Dowling?
Yes. Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye. Votes 5-2 in favor of approval of the conditional use permit. And I want to thank all the neighbors for coming in and the one in your concerns. And there might be some others in the different locations that we will take a really hard look at from our standpoint. I'm just sorry that your CC&Rs didn't include restrictions on that in the original subdivision CC&Rs. That's where it should have been taken care of, not at the city level. But thank you very much for all coming in. We appreciate it. Mr. Manning, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Probably just save those neighbors from a lot of ugly.
That's my point, is he has other avenues.
Folks, if you want to talk about it,
Like big junipers or something.
would you please? We have some additional business. Thank you.
But I didn't have the money to do that. I didn't have I put one of those revenues.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Our resident cop. No, he's off duty. All right, our next item of business is a CUP, Conditional Use Permit 20003 for Kentucky Fried Chicken signage. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Gary Davis with Community Development. The site is on the west side of South Main between Camino Real and State Route 260. This is a conditional use permit request to allow 264 square feet of total signage on that property. Current total signage right now is 299 square feet, and that's something that was approved through design review several years ago at the Commission. The code allows up to 80 square feet because of the position of the building. Position of the building is shown here in red. The narrow part of the building faces Main Street, and that's about a 40-foot frontage, so anything under 55-foot building frontage only gets up to 80 square feet of total signage on the property. The applicant's architect has submitted plans with different elevations showing the location of the pole sign, which is out front. Shows the entry elevation, which faces the parking lot, the drive-through elevation, as well as the front. Here's a picture of the front, which shows both a internally illuminated sign on the building, the KFC letters, as well as the pole sign. The pole sign, internally illuminated, would stay. That KFC sign, according to the application for a sign permit, would be moved to another side of the building, and an existing internally illuminated sign would be removed. On the drive-through elevation, two side signs that are existing would be removed. On the entry side, both the internally illuminated bucket sign you see there, as well as these side signs would be removed as well. What's being proposed on the front elevation is some artwork and some signage, as well as some other text on the side of the building. On the drive-through elevation, what's being proposed is another KFC red letter sign, as well as some artwork on the red part next to the drive-through. On the entry elevation, this on the left, you see the KFC. That's the white lettering that would get moved from one side of the building, and some additional artwork and text lower in the building. Looking around the neighborhood, looking directly north on Main Street, you see a number of businesses as well as signs. Across the street, again, businesses and signs. Looking south on Main Street, more signage. No dearth of signage in this particular area. That concludes our presentation. We have, I believe, the applicant is here to answer any questions. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have as well.
Okay, any questions, Commissioner Hart?
Could we see the existing front elevation one more time, please? Existing.
Existing, yes, I'm moving back to it. There it is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My understanding again is that that white letter sign would get moved around the front. Is that correct? Yes.
All right. Is that lit?
That's internally illuminated, yes.
Yes, okay, good. Any questions, any other questions?
What was the explanation for the removal of the window?
Of which?
Is there, below the existing, on the right side, is there not a window?
There is a window.
Yes.
Yeah, the window's not going anywhere.
It looks like it's being removed.
Maybe they're just painting right on top of it.
Yeah, right there, where that window was, is that gonna cover it? Okay.
You can ask the applicant.
All right.
that, he can
Yeah.
explain
Okay, just 1 second, in case we have some other technical, most of these are probably gonna go directed to the developer or the owner.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
No questions.
But again, the request would be a reduction over what's there now. It's just, the reduction is still not what would be allowed for a building that has 40 foot of front.
Now, if that
building.
question, if that building were turned the other way, it'd be more than 55 feet, right?
It would be more than 55 feet of frontage, and there you do a sliding scale, adding 1.5 square feet, I believe, for each frontage, or for each foot of frontage, up to a maximum of 200. So even if it was a maximum, a really big building, the maximum would still be 200.
200, okay. Commissioner Norwood, do you have any technical questions of Gary?
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions for Gary?
Yes, I do. Well, the first thing is I am having some trouble hearing some of the discussion. Now, I do get some of it. I guess my question, it's kind of confusing in reading the project proposal background. I'm having trouble really trying to understand what is allowed and what additional square footage the applicant is asking for. It's a simple question. Yeah.
What is,
And what square footage, what this is saying.
total square footage allowed, given the size of the,
Understanding what you're saying, this connection is okay, but you say in and out, the words are garbled.
okay.
So I keep asking you to repeat things so I understand what's going on here, right?
Sure, I'm closer to the phone now, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, correct. How many square foot does he have right now?
299 square feet total.
And what's he asking for?
264 according to what was submitted to by the architect.
And what's he allowed?
80, given the size and configuration of the building. Yes, because the short side of the building faces the street. It's about 40 feet wide. That falls under the 55 square feet, at which you can have 80 square feet total, 80 square feet of signage total on the property.
But if the building was turned?
Yeah, if the building had been turned and the wide portion of the building was facing the street, still, the maximum you could have would be 200, and the request is for 264. I should note too, Mr. I should note too, Mr. Chairman, that we did have one objection that was emailed in, somebody who couldn't make it tonight, an owner of a property, 2 properties to the north, I believe, who had just put in signs and had met their requirement and felt it was unfair that somebody else would get that and not him.
Okay.
So,
Did he request that he get additional square footage and was turned down, or?
no, not to our knowledge. He submitted one, a submittal that was within the limits.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, any other questions of Gary? Commissioner Sherman, any questions of Gary at this point, or save them for the applicant?
I'll save them. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, do you have any questions of Gary, or do you want to wait for the applicant?
No, I do not have any questions, but technical questions for staff or Gary. But I do want to ask, I just have to get it out there. Can we get the bucket back?
No.
Bucket back.
No.
That is not a part of the proposal at this time.
No
I
buckets.
just missed the bucket.
Yes. Gary, this sign artwork on the front, is that lit
Mr.
also?
Chairman.
Or is that just artwork on the building?
It's just paint.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Norwood has,
Commissioner Norwood, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do have some additional questions that I'd like to have answered.
You want to answer can the applicant answer those, or does Gary?
I didn't understand what you just said.
Questions for the applicant or for staff?
Well, what section are we on? Are we among ourselves, or are we talking with the applicant? Where are we right now?
We're talking with staff.
Okay. So I'm looking at the current pole sign and front elevation, okay? I'm looking at page number 1 where the top picture shows building elevation and the bottom picture shows current pole sign and front eastern elevation.
Yes.
Now, I guess where I'm confused is the 80 square feet, does that include the huge KFC sign that I see here and that I drive by every day? It says KFC, shows the kernel, and underneath that it says drive-through.
Yes.
Can you separate square footage to my mind's eye relative to what I'm looking at currently? And I'm very confused as to what I'm looking at. I mean, is this Colonel Sanders sign, this big sign that's standing up there with his picture, is that going to remain?
My understanding is that would remain. That's according to the chart that was part of the building permit application that's in your packet. There's a big chart of numbers there, and it tells which signs would remain and which would be removed and which ones would be added. The pole sign is to remain, and I believe that's about 70 square feet of internally illuminated sign.
Okay. And then I'm looking at the eastern elevation of the building. And on the top here it says KFC, and then to the right is another picture of Colonel Sanders.
Yes.
Okay. So, trying to think through this thing here, and what the change is, he wants to have a bigger picture of the Colonel, and he wants to put world famous chicken across the front of the building where it says KFC.
What is proposed on this, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but the KFC lettering would be moved around to another side of the building, and the current internally illuminated picture of the Colonel would be removed, and then in its place over that same location would be some painted on artwork. That would be considered part of the signage. That's calculated, and that's shown on the plans, the red and white plans for the site that are in your packet.
Okay, I got it now. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. No, I think you answered that painting just could be paint, right? On the
The applicant can
new
explain
front.
that,
Yeah,
sure.
that's fine. Okay, very fine. The applicant, please, sir. You will. And your name for the record, please.
Robert Allred.
Yes, Mr. Allred. That portrait's going to be just a painting on the wall. It's not going to be lit up.
Yeah, it's a stencil that they put on there and paint.
Yes, and the other one's the same way.
Yeah, the signs on the building currently.
Like that right there?
Right.
Okay, that's all. That's just going to be painted, right? All right.
And world famous chicken is also painted?
Yes.
Okay, that's just going to be painted. That's not going to be a lit sign?
Right.
Okay. And
What about the red KFC on the drive-through side?
That'll be lit up.
Okay.
Okay.
We're actually going from, currently we have, let's see. Currently we have about 98 feet lit signs on the building, and that's going to be reduced to only 37 feet of lit signs. It'll just be 2 KFC letters, KFC, one on each side of the building, one red, one is white.
right.
And KFC just, they're doing this nationwide, trying to get all the franchisees to go with one, because there's so many different styles out there. They're trying to go back to the original kernel and try to get everybody the same way. And that's one of the reasons they took so much lit signs off the building, trying to coordinate things so it'd be better easier for all the cities to try to approve the same thing, kind of.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, questions of the applicant, sir?
I would still get back to, is there any way to work around this so you don't have to take out the window?
The window, the thing with the window, this new look, it's called the, trying to think. Anyway, it's inside, or on the other side of that kernel's head there. It's going to be kind of like a little mini museum of the kernel. It's going to have old pictures of the kernel and all that stuff. So they needed a wall in all the stores that they can put they can highlight that section inside the store. So that's why most of the stores that have done that have blocked off the one window so they can have that corner as kind of a little museum.
So the removal of the window is more for the inside actually.
Right.
And then you're just extending the logo down.
Right.
Over where you're blocking it out.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner,
I don't have any questions, sir.
Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Norwood, questions of the applicant?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that question?
Yeah, questions for the applicant?
I still don't understand what you're
Do you have questions for the applicant?
Why do we need so many signs?
Yeah. I mean, is business bad, or, are people not seeing the,
Well, we've reduced signage every year, every time we've done a remodel. From originally, we've been there for 48 years, so we were working on from the original big sign with the big bucket with the big flashing yellow arrow. 93, we took the flashing yellow arrow down, and in 2007 we took the bucket down. That was when they put the Long Johns in, and I actually sold the business at that point, and the new owners put the Long Johns in, and I actually got the store back because they went out of business. So I got the store back, put the KFC back in. That's I don't know. I mean, 70 feet of it is the big sign, which was put in 48 years ago. I don't know what, and we're trying to just put the most of the signage on the outside of the building is just going to be painted. Like I said, there's only 37 square feet of signage that's lit up on the outside and 70 square feet on the big sign. That probably is not a good answer, but we're actually getting less signage than we had before, but I think we'll still sell the same amount of chicken. I said we're actually having less signage than we have currently, but I still think we'll sell the same amount of chicken.
Commissioner Sherman, questions of the applicant?
No questions. It looks like a nice update. I'm curious to see how it all come out. I think it looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman, any questions of the applicant?
No questions at all. Great project. I appreciate you guys. You guys have been here just about as long as I've been alive, so keep going and keep selling that chicken. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Allred, I have no questions at this point. I don't have any, you can be excused. Yeah, I think so at this point. I don't have any notes for anybody else to speak, so I'm going to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Hart, would you start us off, please, sir?
Well, all in all, I think the presentation is well done. I like the fact that he's reducing the amount of square footage of signage. Other than the loss of the window, yeah. But I understand what they're going for, so yeah. Okay. That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Dow, your comments, sir.
Well, I like the fact that we're reducing signage size and we're going to more of the art look rather than the sign in your face look, so I like the design.
Mr. Mattson.
I like that it's more murals. I think that these take different consideration than like lighted signs. I think that it's a good direction.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, comments, please, sir.
I don't think you need so many signs on the building. I think it's 3 times more than what's allowed. You've got that large sign out on the street, which is quite obvious. I think the applicant is asking for 30% more than what he really needs. Thank you.
Commissioner Sherman, your comments, please.
I really don't have anything to add. I think it looks like a good project. There might be 1 or 2 signs extra, but there's on different parts of the building. You can see it from different locations. And that's pretty much all I have for you.
Vice Chairman, your comments, please, sir.
No real additional comments. Waddle into the bucket and good luck.
I personally think this is a great improvement over the old signage. I never did like those little lit signs on the building, that the portrait kind of things. I thought that was pretty corny, quite frankly. This is much more professional. I like the idea we're reducing the amount of lit signage and overall, but it will have less lit signage. I think this is going to look real good, and looking forward to seeing it done. Commissioner Dow, could I have a motion, please, sir?
Sir, I would move to approve CUP 20-003 to allow All Red Investments LLC to exceed the allowable signage requirements, subject to the following stipulations. One, that the project is developed in conformance with the proposed sign area shown in the sign permit application submitted on October 24th of 2019. Two, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 12 months from the date of this approval. And number three, the City of Cottonwood reserves the right to revoke the conditional use permit if the use creates an irremediable public safety problems as determined by the city.
Yes, sir. Second the motion?
A second.
Commissioner Masson seconds the motion. Brenda, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Maston?
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood? Commissioner Sherman?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Dowling?
Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye. Motion carries 6-1. Mr. Allred, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Good. That ends the formal part of our meeting. I would like to say this will be Commissioner Narwood's last meeting with us. He's going on to bigger and better things, possibly. But we just want to personally express my thanks for his insightfulness and attention to detail over these past 3 years. He's with us. He's going to be missed. And very best wishes, Tom. Thank you for your service, sir. I don't know if you heard it or not. All right. Discussion items, Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any discussion items. However, I do think you missed number 2, the informational reports and updates.
Oh, okay. I keep wanting to go those at the end. I don't know. I'm getting out of order.
It used to be at the end. We're
I
trying
know. I
to
just
move it up, so if
I know.
Anybody from
Teaching
the
old dogs new
thing.
tricks is terrible.
I do have a couple things. There was an open meeting law training scheduled for March 31st. That's going to be postponed at this time, and we will let the commission know when that gets rescheduled. Also, a previous project that was approved by the commission, the Belfry Brewery, which is right over here on the corner. They made some exterior changes, had a lot to do with their historic designation and approval from the federal government, Department of Interior, on the plans they did. So they made some modifications to the exterior, but not significant enough that it needed to come back to the commission for approval. So we did administrative staff level approval on it, but we wanted to make you aware of it.
What were those? There's 3 things, or 4 things I remember. Would you please tell us about that?
The main one was here in the Belfry. If you look at the difference between the two, they enclosed the sides. It's more of an enclosed structure where previously it was open. So it had to do with Belfry. This entrance, which is on the south side of the building, was open on all 3 sides. Now it's only open on the one side as you come up. The 2 sides here are enclosed, which you can sort of see over here on this side, that you would have an enclosed entrance there. The other was, previously the elevator was back around in the small little corner here, side of the building. They've moved it around to the front, and this is actually a lift, not an enclosed elevator. It will be a handicap lift. So it's much more accessible to the main entrance of the building. So should anybody come to the building, they don't have to wander and roll all the way down to another location. This patio along the this little corner here was enlarged about 100 square feet.
It's brought out more to the front, too?
Correct. There was an existing patio there. It's been just extended. So the changes were very minor. The changes, with the exception of the increased size of the patio, were requested by the Department of the Interior when they were submitting their historic plans to. They got approved at the state level. They went to the feds, and they were kicked back with some comments that they had made on this plan. And previously, one of the things, there was one other change that was not approved at the federal level. Wrapping the building, there were steel bands going around the entire building to maintain the structural integrity, or to improve the integrity. It was very dangerous. They redesigned the building, which removed those steel bands around the building, and all the structural improvements are internal to the building, so they're not seen to the exterior.
These changes, I understand it, were made, the feds were saying they wanted the building to be redesigned to more or less bring it back as close as possible to the original building as it was designed. And from a historical standpoint, with those enclosures over the front entry and the side entry, those particular changes, and they wanted the elevator for better access. Was that one of their requirements as well? Or is that just something?
That was the applicant.
That the applicant's decision to change, okay. And the patio was also requested by the feds?
Yeah. No, that was by the applicant.
By the applicant, okay. Which gives them more outside seating?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And it makes there's a little, as you come up the steps on this side, there would be an access now going into, or emergency exit out of the patio area there.
Right to that porch, okay.
Gives them another exiting location from the building.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, any comments?
I think it's a big improvement. I really like it. I never liked the idea of the elevator.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
This is under
really can't-
informational reports that can't be discussed.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Disregard previous direction.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a feel. We need formal action, but I would agree with the staff that we don't need to go for a formal hearing on this, and the changes are made or should be within your purview, and actually an improvement personally, but that's okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions? Anybody? Appreciate everybody calling in. Again, Tom Norwood, best wishes, sir. Thank you. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
All right. Thank you.